Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, videos are back with another card fight Vanguard deck with obviously Georgia on select come squad from small shall we? This time we're covering Keter Sanctuary Hexaorb set 6. So Hexaorb is I want them to give us like a grade 4 or an evolution of Hexaorb because like they're very much hinting at it. They're like giving us very small hints, but hints enough for me. And I'm really hoping they do give us one because this deck really needs a rehype min in my opinion. I mean, that is just my opinion. I think it's fine the way it is, but I do think we need like some big capsule thing to make it feel like the deck's actually complete and not just like it feels like it's missing something, because that's how I feel like with it. So go and get the started, shall we? And you might see what I mean. So first up we have our starter in Connect Sorceress, grade 0, boost 5k shield, 6k base, auto road upon. If you win second, draw a card. Standard starting up better, you can basically pick any starter you want, unless the grade 1 happens to require the starter, or like a very specific starter in Soul. I don't remember if it does or not, I don't think it does, but either way, really pick whatever starter you want, but again, if the grade 1 does require it, then just run it. So, free draw for going second. Then we have our Overtrigger Light Dragon Deity of Honors Amartinoa, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base, Overtrigger moment, Overtrigger deck, if it was a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of these, plus 1 melee for the turn. And if you avoided your draft check, activation reflector, which is until end of turn, you can also perform draft check battles for your rearguard attacks. So, pretty much your rearguards get draft checks, and that's all around pretty good, because, like, even with the 1 million, you could go with Albari with it to, make 2 of your rearguards immortal, but at the same time, you're getting draft checks, and, you're increasing your hand amount, and it's really good in like the early game rush, where your opponent's probably going to take the attacks anyway, so might as well try to get some benefit out of it with the extra drafts. All around Amartinoa is a really nice overtrigger. I like his wing design, so why not run him? Then there's our normal triggers. So we run just 2 normal fronts. There are other fronts, just saying 2 normal fronts in Right Crow Sorcerer Taxus, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. 2 normal crits in White Fang Witch Disma, grade 0 boost, 15k power, 5k shield, 15k shield, 5k power. 3 copies of Blade for the Dragon A effect, critical, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear at the end battle that boosted. Put this unit to soul, choose one of vehicles plus 2k for the battle. For the turn, so really cool. Adds up to soul, which somehow isn't the deck's main resource problem. I don't understand it, but whatever. So, being able to add some crits to that is pretty nice. We have 4 fronts in Bard of Heavenly Song Outpack, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, front trigger to his guard token. If your opponent's vanguards are grade 3 or greater, he gets plus 5k shield, so cool, 20k shield, and 4 regular heals and Circling Sorceress, because honestly, I like looking at Circling Sorceress. I don't know why. Looking at her from tabletop and looking at her from like this perspective is very different, because she's one of the very few cards I think that that when I look at her in tabletop, I see something different than I see when I'm looking at it like this. So I don't know. I really like Circling Sorceress. She looks really cool in my opinion. I don't know why. She just looks so cool. So yeah, 4 regular heals. We all know why I don't like the effect heals. Even if it wasn't for Circling Sorceress looking cool in my opinion, I still would rather run a normal heal than the effect heals. The reasoning for is like they're too situational in my opinion. You can run them for like the situations where they come useful, because one of them happens a little bit more often than the other one does, but like in the situations where those heals don't go off, you're essentially wasting a 5k shield. So yeah, might as well just run the 4 regular heals in my opinion. If you want to run the 4 like the effect heals, go ahead, but I prefer the regular heals. So yes, we have a total of 6 fronts, 5 crits, 4 heals, and then the 1 over, because why not? I want to be that little bit more aggressive with the fronts, but the extra crits seem really nice too. Then we have our grade 1s. 3 copies of Recurring Magic, Lalarita. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear at the end battle of your draft check ability trigger unit. If your Vanguard is Hexaorb Sorceress, Current Boss 1, Soul Boss 1, choose one of your rearguard, stand, and retire itself. The reasoning for this is because, like, if you sacked the over with this card on the board, technically there is a way to get like what, 8, 7? No, maybe not 7. Like at least 5 attacks basically, or 6 attacks, and obviously, and with boost obvious, and that you don't want that to happen, especially because you can just keep getting more draft checks if you sack the over with this thing on the board. So actually, wait, no, it wouldn't, because how Bushy ruled things. But point is, like, they made it so that you can't break her. All around, she is a good grade 1. She gets you that possible restand for multi-attack, and not to mention, she just gets you that multi-attack. I mean, the counter boss and Soul Boss is kind of hefty, but she's been putting in work, so I don't really mind, especially because Soul Boss hasn't really seemed to be an issue. Whenever I do use her, Counterblast is of the importance at the moment, and then later in the game, it kind of comes back to bite me in the ass, but who cares? She's a really good grade 1, and I like her, so there, especially because the whole point of the deck is to be really aggressive, which is why we run no draws whatsoever, so yeah, Renata going off is pretty good. Then we have 3 copies of Diaglass Sorceress. The story of cards that I have where when they first came out, they were like super useful, then they became slowly less useful over time because maybe either they just stopped being good for me for whatever reason, or like my luck with them slowly worsened, is the perfect way to describe this card. She used to give me everything I need. Well, that's a debatable statement, but she used to give me really good cards for the situations that I needed them in for Diaglass, and then slowly over time she just stopped. I don't know why. She just stopped, and now she only gives me like reveals, like things I should have just wouldn't be bothered calling, and honestly I should have just swung with Van. So grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base. Auto when is placed on rear guard from hand if your Vanguard is Hexaorb or Pentagleam Sorceress. Counter boss 1, discard 1, look at the top 2, choose up to 2 unit cards from on them, call into rear guard, and put the rest on the top in any order. So cool. So you can put the stuff back on top, so you can deck stack. She gets you 2 rear guards, all for the cost of a counter boss and discard, technically turning the discard into 2 units, so it's kind of a +1. Downside is you might be losing a trigger out of this if you choose to call something. You can choose not to call anything, but you might be losing a trigger out of this, and especially if you see 2 triggers, in my opinion, that's like the worst thing to use this skill on, because that's a wasted counterblast, which is somewhat in difficult cost here, and a wasted discard. So, because granted, you're going to +2 to hand, but So, 3 of Diaglass. She's not bad. She is good. She just hasn't been good to me for whatever reason. But I remember the time she was good to me, and I will keep her along for that good faith, because I know one day she will eventually come to my side and then not disown me again. So 3 of Diaglass. I have faith that she will return to her niceness. When, I don't know. Then we have 4 PGs in the Aegismare Dragon, grades 1 boost, 5k, 0 shield, 6k base. Continues to know you in 4 signs of the deck, and auto is put on guard circle. Choose when reveals it cannot be into battle. And if your hand has 2 or more cards, you choose a card from hand, discard it. So standard PG, not much about it. It is just if this and only one other card is in your hand when you would place it, you do not have to discard, so that's really nice. That means you can be as aggressive as you want, and that's the whole point of this deck, just be hyper-aggressive right from the get-go, and now you can kind of defend yourself when this ends up in your hand. So cool, all around the PG is really nice. Prevents you from dying due to your own stupidity with the multi-attack, or not multi-attack, but like just being super aggressive. So yeah, 4 of the PG. It's kind of needed in this deck for once, I'd say. Then we have 1 copy of our grade 1 in the ride deck, none in the main deck, of Tier Square Sorceress. So grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto is wrote upon by a Pentagleam Sorceress specifically, counterblast 1 draw card. Okay. It's a draw. It's not bad. I mean, my issue with this is just Circle Magus but worse. If you don't remember what Circle Magus did from V, it was just the same exact skill, except it can be wrote upon anything. So like, this is honestly not a good skill in my opinion. Like, it could have just been a free draw. Like Richard from Diablo's Dark States does the same exact thing, but gets a better cost out of it because you're getting Soul, the mechanic of the deck being required around Soul, and she over here costs counterboss, which is kind of an important resource here. So yeah, not really good skill, but you get what you can take. And then auto rear once per turn when your draft check as a trigger unit. Counterboss 1, choose one of your opponent's former rear guards and put it to bottom. You would never use this. There's no way you can get this thing out of the soul and back onto the board. Not to my knowledge anyways, and not to my knowledge in any way in shape or form in Keter Sanctuary. If there is, then cool, run it if you want to. But honestly, there's no reason to call this to the board. There really isn't. Getting rid of an opponent's rear guard, why yes, that's good. There's something in this deck that does the same thing but better. So take that as you will. 1 of in the ride deck, none in the main deck. Then we move on to our grade 2s. 4 copies of Magic of Appreciation Nanaful, grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base. Auto rear when your draft check reveals a trigger unit, put that card to soul, or put a hand card to soul to draw a card. So, this is good because it gets you soul. I put her in here thinking my deck was going to cost a lot more soul. Here's the thing, without her, the deck costs soul. Like, has such a soul problem. And you may be thinking, okay, so clearly, then she's doing her job. No, she's not, because I rarely use her. I think it's just her being here in general means I have less soul cost. Not because I'm using her skill. I guess that's just what it means. So, like, she's good. She was good because if I do start seeing triggers and then I really need to like filter out my hand, I can quickly save up soul for other skills such as Restander back here. But the draws kind of like are far in between. Sometimes there are more triggers, which isn't particularly good. And for some reason, when they're not triggers, those are the games that I end up losing more often than not. Even if said cards are PGs. Can't explain it. She's kind of like she's one of the cards where you can where when I use her, I can tell when I'm going to win or lose because there will be a constant trend that has decided whether that game will end in a victory or a loss. If I see a trigger from her skill, it will more often end in a victory. If I see a PG, it has always been a loss. It has never not been a loss. So that's what I've learned from her. She is cursed. She will either be my blessing or my reason I lose. So 4 of Nanaful. She fills up your soul. She possibly gets you something good in hand, and in my way, she's the thing that decides my victory or my loss. So yeah, 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Yearful Magic Esunono. Grade 2 NSF 5k shield, 10k base. Auto rear once per turn when this unit attacks. If your Vanguard is a Hexaorb Sorceress or a Pentagon Sorceress, by discarding 1, look at the top 2, choose up to 2 cards from one of them, put them to top, put the rest to bottom, and then this unit gets plus 10k for the turn. So cool. You don't have to put both to top. You can put 1 to top, 1 to bottom. You can put both to bottom. You can put both to top. And regardless, she will get plus 10. All right, I like that. That is an amazing plus because once she keeps it for the turn, meaning that when she restands via 2 possible different, well, technically she can only restand once by skills, but like pretty much once she restands, she's going to keep that 20k or plus 10k, which means she can attack again. Unfortunately, it is a once per turn, but as she deck stacks, she gets you possible triggers. In my case, she never gives me triggers. Never has, never will, probably. But hey, that 10k is nice. The discard, for some reason, has always have to been the choice between a PG and a crit for some reason. I have no idea why. It just always ends up that way. Or a Persona Ride, which sucks, but whatever. Esunono all around is a good grade 2. Being able to get plus 10, being able to kind of do whatever, just for a... You know, that's the constant trend I've realized with this deck. Whenever I have to discard for anything, the choices are always either a crit, a PG, or a Persona Ride. Those are the only good options. I repeat, those are the good options. Yes, because everything else are rear guards that I need to win. So that's a constant trend I've realized with this deck. It's just the fact that I happen to always have to discard either a crit, a PG, or Persona Ride. I don't know why this happens to be the case. I think this deck is just like out to get me, but whatever. 4 of Esunono. All around, she is my favorite grade 2. No offense, Nanaful, but like I said, you are either my curse or my winning factor. So yeah, might as well go for the one that doesn't have the fate of the game in its hands. So 4 of her. I like her skill. I like her art. Why not run her? Then we have 4 copies of Quadracast Sorceress, the one that actually does her job. That doesn't decide the fate of the game. Grade 2 NSF 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when is placed on rear if your Vanguard has Sorceress and its card name. You see, this is why I think we're going to have another Sorceress grade 3 or grade 4. Because this is not the only card that has done this. They did release another card. I think it was either in the Festival Collection or another card in set 6 that specified Sorceress. This says Hexaorb or Pentagleam. So I'm wondering why, like, are we not getting another Sorceress? Or did they just, like, put the Sorceress thing just so they don't can save space? I have no idea, but whatever. So anyways, you know, look at the top 2 and put them on the top in any order and you still charge 1. Okay, upside, she soul charges. Cool. So if soul for some reason ever became a problem in this deck, you immediately have a chance to fix it. Downside, both are staying at top. Here's the reason why I say downside. Every time I've used this skill, they have been normal units. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. That's a good thing because that means I'm not losing triggers. Downside, 1, I can't send one of them to bottom, which means I'm losing out on one of my drive checks being a possible trigger. So, you know, now I just have to pick the better of the 2 normal units, and typically they're not really that good because I know they're not going to last past the turn because I'm probably going to drop them for PG fodder. And then the other issue is if they are both triggers, one of them is going to soul. So there's that. The ideal situation with her is you see a normal unit and a trigger, but yeah, it doesn't really make the difference. So Quadracast all around is really good. She gets you that soul. For now, she's been good because I'm not really losing anything of importance, but she's kind of like ruining my drive check. So I wish she could send stuff to bottom. She doesn't, but I'm getting a soul out of it, so I don't really care. 4 of Quadracast, really good. Doesn't cost counter boss. Really wish she kind of gave a counter charge, but good enough for me for the soul charge. Then we have 1 of in the ride deck, none in the main deck of Pentagleam Sorceress. So grade 2 NSF 5k shield, 10k base, auto was wrote upon by Hexaorb Sorceress. Look at top 3, put them at the top in any order. The constant thing with her is there is either a crit or a front in the top, regardless of when I've ever used this. My entire time of using this deck, that has been a constant trend. Regardless of which version of it is, it will always be a crit or a front in the top. So that's honestly pretty good, consistently hitting crits or fronts. That might just be me, who knows. And then auto when it's placed on rear, the ability that will never go off because you would never be able to place this on rear because there's no way in hell you're getting this out of soul onto board via any convoluted combo in this deck. Look at the top card of your deck, put it to top or bottom. If you put on the bottom, she gets +2. You see, this is why I like the fact that she can still get the +10 because this thing in my mind and another certain card I believe existed in Oracle Think Tank back in V was like you can stack the top card to either the top or bottom, but if you put it on the bottom, you get more of a benefit from it. I like the fact that Esunono gets the benefit regardless of where you put it, so that's all around a good thing. So even if they're both triggers, you can keep them on top and she'll still get the +10. Pentagleam being that like 50-50 mark where she is a free stack, but like it's not really worth it because you're only going to get the 2k if you send it to bottom, and even then it still can't hit a grade 3, which leads me to question, why did they give this a 2k plus? It's not a magic number against anything. What was the point of this? Why give it the 2k plus? What was the reasoning? I want to know, but like whatever. Pentagleam is okay. Obviously you're not going to run in the main deck unless you really think you want that free stack, but I don't think you need that much, and the top 3 search is good. I honestly wish that was the skill Hexaorb had, but whatever. All around, still a good grade 2. I like it. One of in the right deck, none in the main deck. Unless you want to run in the main deck, then in that case, bye-bye Nanaful. Then we have our grade 3s. 2 copies of Octadevote Sorceress, grade 3 200 persona, 13k base, as my only countercharger. I kind of need her. Auto rear when your jet check throws a trigger unit, if your Vanguard is a Hexaorb Sorceress, retire this unit, countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. So you never need to use the soul charge part. We have, if we're going by copies, 4, 8. Okay, so it's just 8, but we have a total of 8 soul chargers. So yeah, I think we're clear. And countercharge, obviously you need to use that. This deck does, like I said before, has a counterblast issue, so you could run a Fusado in his place. Maybe not just Fusado, you can kind of run any countercharger. Fusado is just the first one that came to mind because someone recently brought him up on my Youthberg deck profile. But my same reasoning for the Youthberg one is it's another grade 3. It requires a on hit compared to a trigger check. And from what I've seen, it's a lot harder to get Fusado to hit now than it was back when Overdress was just starting. I don't know if it's because people consider Fusado a bigger threat now, or if it's just because like the game has gotten to the point where like it's easier to block Fusado, but for some reason Fusado has hit less and less. I mean, when I used to run him, I cut him right at set 4 or set 3. I don't remember when I cut him, but I cut him like immediately, so yeah, at some point he kind of just falls off, so I'd rather have the card that's like more guaranteed to go off with the deck's gimmick rather than is an on hit that isn't really going to make a difference, especially because there's no need to kill him, so like the retire effect doesn't really matter. So 2 of Octadevote, countercharge and possible soul charge if you're really in that situation, but you probably won't be. Then we have 3 copies of Twinned Great Magic Totohne. Grade 3 200 persona at 13k base, auto rear at the end of the battle that your unit attacked, so it doesn't have to be the Vanguard, counterblast 1, and perform all the following effects below according to the trigger units revealed from the draft check for that battle. Yes, this is specifically worded that way so that if you did see the over, or if you found a way to give your rear guard draft checks, you can abuse this. So critical trigger, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, put it to bottom. Okay. Cool, so basically the same thing that Tier Square does, except you have to see a crit to do it. Fair, fair, fair. And then front, choose one of your Great Tier Less rear guards, stand it. Yep, that 10k is coming in useful really quickly. And you can combine it with Lalarita, because your draft check revealed a trigger, and you can choose to stand this thing. And guess what? She is not a once per turn. Meaning if you sacked the over, and I forgot the rulings on it or not for the over trigger, but would it still apply to D? I don't remember if it does or not, but even if it doesn't, you could strategically play it where you go rear guard this thing, because it's a grade 3, it has twin drive, sack a front, skill, stand the unit, and then stand more, but then like even if you lost the draft check, doesn't really matter because you're just going to keep attacking. So all around Totohne is really good. If you do see the over and then start sacking fronts like there's no tomorrow, you essentially do to your opponent what Aichi did to that unfortunate Grand Blue player in Asia Circuit where they had rear guard draft checks, which was a horrible idea back then and is a horrible idea now. But yes. All around Totohne is a really good grade 3. Definitely like her for the multi-attack. Unfortunately, for some reason, this is the only Keter deck I don't sack fronts in. Don't understand why. The one deck I want to sack fronts in is the deck I can't sack fronts in. Maybe me shit-talking it now is going to affect that, so hopefully that is true, because typically when I shit-talk something, it happens. So 3 copies, or the opposite happens. So 3 copies of Totohne. The being able to restand something is really nice, and being able to send something to bottom is really good, so 3 of. Then we move on to our final unit. It's our main grade 3, 3 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the red deck of Hexaorb Sorceress. So grade 3 200 persona at 13k base, auto van when your draft check goes a trigger unit, choose one of your rear guards, it gets plus 10 for the turn. Okay, the plus side about this is if you are boosting Hexaorb, everything immediately becomes every guard moves up by 1 scale. So a 1 to pass originally was like a 15k, a 2 to pass that was originally 15k, maybe, is now a 1 to pass. Even if that booster was a 4k booster and it was a trigger, that is immediately a 1 to pass. Here's why. Trigger, give it to the Vanguard. Skill of Hexaorb, give it to the rear guard. Skill of how boosting works. That power goes back to Hexaorb. Yep, So trigger technically can get 20 to Hexaorb. So basically what you do with this deck is you play one grade 1 or anything that can boost behind Hexaorb, and then immediately make the Vanguard a constant at least 3-card drop so that your opponent doesn't die from one trigger stack. So all around, Hexaorb is already dangerous for that skill alone, and then act Van once per turn. If you Persona Road this turn, counter boss, one soul boss, one reveal to one critical trigger or front trigger from your hand, put it at the top, and this unit gets +1 drive for the turn. So cool. For the record, you do have to pay the counter boss and soul boss for that skill, but you do not have to put a front or crit to the top to get the triple drive. You get the triple drive once you pay the cost. You don't have to put a front or crit to top, but you can if you want to, just to get that, front or crit. So here's my issue with Hexa. I have always felt this way. It's not just a recent thing. I've always felt this. I feel like the locking it behind Persona Ride was the worst thing they could have done. I don't think like letting that be a free plus a crit or a front to top was a good idea, but I do feel like locking it behind a Persona Ride was kind of annoying, because I at least remember back when it first started, I would rarely draw into Hexaorb. The Persona Ride Sorcerer, there was just not enough room for it if I wanted to have consistent power gain. And as for this deck, yeah, okay, I'm consistently drawing Hexaorb. Like I said, half the time my decisions for discards have to result in either a PG, a Persona Ride, and a crit. And if you're playing defensively, obviously you're going to have to drop the Hexa. If you're playing aggressively, you have to drop the PG. Reasoning for this being you're going to want to keep the crit for Hexaorb skill. So it's a constant thing. I hate the fact that they locked it behind Persona Ride, because nowadays, even when I do get this off, I had to sacrifice my crit the previous turn, or my front, so now I don't have a trigger in hand, and typically the only trigger I have now in hand is a heal, which I cannot stack to top, and yeah, well, my triple drive still gives me a front or a crit, but, I don't get to stack something to top, so I hate the fact that they locked it behind Persona Ride. I think this is the reason why I want them to give us like a new Hexaorb, just because I want them to fix that, even if it still is locked behind some similar Ride bullshit. I hope it's like better, like kind of guarantees you it, instead of just like, if you don't have it in hand, fuck you. So I don't know, that's just me. Either way, I do think it's good though, just simply being able to make everything that was a 1 to pass before an immediate 1 to pass, or like everything that was a 2 to pass before a 1 to pass. So yeah, all around Hexaorb is pretty good in terms of power gain. In terms of being able to get triggers and just things on top, that has never been a thing for me. It has always been non-existent. Those are always the hard thing for me to stack something to top, because typically I got to give it up the turn before to be safe. It's just how it is. 3 of Hexaorb in the main deck, 1 of her in the right deck. And so for the deck, I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck isn't bad. It's not good. It's not bad. It's fine. All I can think about is just like the game I just had against Bav, which can be perfectly described as what happened to Megumi in the anime against Michiru, I feel like happened there. My commentary in that game, even though it was unheard, was almost the exact same. It was rigged, everything was on my side, luck, skill, the cards were actually working for me for once, and what ends up happening? Still lose. I am so salty about that, because I really wanted Bav to lose that match, or at least lose one of those games, not win all of them. So yeah, all around, Hexa is a fine deck. Again, really hoping to give us a new grade 3. I don't care if it's a grade 3 or a grade 4, or just an alternate ride line. I'll take that, or like an alternate Texas. So whatever. In the end, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't click, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to stand up, your Vanguards.